Today I'm going to show you guys 17 of the best sound design techniques out there. It's so sick, bro. I promise you, some of the later ones might change the way you sound design. But enough talking, let's get started with the first technique, and it's called breaking plugins. So breaking plugins is using plugins in a way they probably shouldn't be used, or you use a plugin for a different purpose that it normally should be used for. The best example I have for this is I've been using pitch wheel to do this a lot. What I do is I take a pitch wheel, I go maybe up 4 semitones, 3 semitones, it doesn't really matter. Then I go up maybe like 6 semitones, or I can go up a whole octave, you know? And then I add another 2 pitch wheels and I do the exact opposite, you know? So I go down an octave and I go down 3 semitones. So effectively, we didn't pitch up our signal at all. So it comes in, it goes plus 3 semitones, plus an octave, down an octave, minus 3. So we're back at 0. And because of the pitching algorithms, you get a lot of like this watery effect, which can be really nice for R&B. And you can take this a step further, and in between these pitch wheels, you can add more effects. Let's put in dark sky. So now the idea is the signal comes in, gets pitched up, then you add a new effect. That effect is applied to a pitched up signal, it gets pitched up again, you add another effect, it gets pitched down, and at the end you just get like a lot of artifacts and textures that it's like very hard to get in a different way. So this is what I'm talking about, breaking plugins. You can also do this with growth speed, or like Deja Vu, or like halftime. You can do this with a multitude of different types of effects, just stacking them and using them in a way they are normally not used, you know? So this is how it sounded before. And this is how it sounded after. It's like super watery, artifact, it's like super degraded. And that's sometimes very cool for certain kind of genres. If you're making R&B and you have some cool R&B chords with a nice pad, adding that texture can really create a vibe. So the next technique we have is isolating frequencies. I do this a lot when I'm making one-shots from scratch out of random sounds. And what you do is you can just go into Edison or like any sampler and just set a loop and create something like this, or like shorter, longer. And you want to isolate single waves. As an example, I could take this and I could set a loop and then just drag it into the FL Studio. Now I have a sine wave that I can use as like the bass. So I can tune this, add effects to really turn this into a cool sound, you know? So now we're gonna do the envelope shaping. I just extracted a sine wave out of the sample and I've tuned it, and now we have this. And now we can really give the sound its character. Are we gonna make a bell? Are we gonna make a pad? This is where we decide. Right here, we can give it some attack. Means how fast does the sound fade in. The longer the attack, the longer it's gonna take for the sound to reach its like maximum volume. Using a long attack time is gonna give you pads, sometimes keys. Using short attack times, it's gonna give you that punchy sound like a bell maybe. Which also is really important is the release time. The release time basically decides how long it takes the sound to decay. So if we have it 0, as you can see, I stop pressing on a note, the sound stops. If I turn the release up, I press a note, it has some tail, you know? So these are like probably the most important ones. If you want to make a bell, this is what your envelope could look like. A little more release. If you're trying to make a pad, it would probably look something like this. See? As simple as that. So now we turned this random sample into a sawtooth wave, tuned that, shaped the envelope, and now I just put in a quick chord progression. Sounds cool, but it's still missing a lot. So now we can add some sparkles to it, give it a different vibe, you know? Just add some effects to it to make it really sound luxurious instead of like super basic. I'm gonna use Cymatics Dark Skies for this. It just came out a couple days ago. If you want some more infos on that, you can check the description. So right here, we have a couple options. For now, I'm gonna turn the mix up to 100% just so we can actually hear the effect completely. And we're just gonna tune in the effect, and then we might go down on the mixer. So the number right here determines how many like grains they're gonna be. As you can see, this is gonna give it some size, and the speed is gonna determine how fast it's gonna be, and also the pitch. The feedback is gonna determine how long the signal is gonna like delay, and we can give it some detune. And now let's add our signal back. Ooh, that's so sick. Let's hear it out. It just gives it a texture that really like takes the sample from basic and dry to sounding like very like full, luxurious and textured, you know? Obviously add more to these buckets, so if we just use these, we can keep adding effects to it. So we can use Cymatics space to add some like reverb. And then we can use maybe Deja Vu to slow the whole thing down. Sounds insane as a sample on itself. To finish the sparkle technique with the mix all the way, we can just bounce that out or resample it if you wanted to. And now we can turn this effect off, and then we can actually go and add some fade so it doesn't click, and only add it to the spaces we maybe want the sparkles to be. We can even like pitch them up here. Something like this. The next technique is going to be pitching. Pitching can do a lot. Like just using the pitching algorithms to create texture is something that I like to do because I really like textured sounds, as you can probably tell by now. And there's something so simple that you can do with like pianos, guitars, real sounding instruments to give them a textured vibe. This obviously doesn't work in every genre, but if you're making trap, always very cool. So we have a piano right here. And now I want this to sound a lot more textured, but I don't want to go too crazy. What you can do is pitch it an octave up, add it to a mixer track, and then just bounce it out. So now that we have an audio form, but one octave higher than we actually want it in. And then we can go in and pitch an octave down. Turn it into a stretch. And it's as simple as that. This is very nice if you're making like dark piano melodies, something like Back in Blood or like Drake or something. It's super insane for that vibe and it's super quick. You can obviously also do this with one shots if you're making one shots, pitching up your one shot and then bouncing it out and stretching, like pitching it down again. Super fun. The next sound design technique is transient shaping. We have our loop from before and our hi-hat loop, and now we want to add some snares. I really like the sound, but I need this to hit harder, you know? I need the attack to be faster. I need it to like have more punch. What you can do is transient shaping. What I like to use is the transient master from Native Instruments. If you're on FL, you can also use transient processor, which is a native plugin. I've used this a million times, but as soon as I got Transient Master, I just use this just because it's easier to use, you know, and you get the same similar results. What we do now is just give it more attack, you know. You don't have to go crazy and go to 100, but we'll just go for the beginning so you get the point. As you can see, it gives it so much more attack. And then the sustain is gonna shorten the sound or lengthen the sound. So let's like shorten it a little bit. Or maybe lengthen. And you can obviously do the same the other way around. So if you say it has a little bit too much attack, and this way you can shape your drums, you know. I actually learned this from Illmind. He used this transient master on like all of his drums. And since then I've just been using it because it makes your drums like that much more crisp, you know. You can use this on kicks, you can use this on snares, on rims, on everything like drum wise. You can also use it on one shots. It's just a very quick and nice thing to do. So the next one is Vintifiying Sounds. I'm gonna just call it like that. What I'm talking about is making a sound old, basically. There are a couple ways to achieve the sound, from Origin, RC20, Reels, any like tape machine. You can use hardware, you can use plugins. And what I like to do is also use chorus, mono, and stereo, doing stuff like that. So let's just do this right here. As you can see, Cymatics plugin also already has a chorus in there, so I don't really need to use another chorus right here. We're gonna use this piano again for reference. The movement is the wow and flutter, so we wanna take this down a little bit. I'll take a little bit of the higher. What I like to do is turn it to mono. Not completely, a little bit. This is just a super simple way to degrade a sound very fast. I use it all the time on samples, on drums sometimes even, when you're making that lo-fi stuff maybe. Yeah, so overall, just a very nice technique. So the next sound design technique is going to be distortion. Distortion can have like many different forms, and I'm just going to show you guys what I use mainly for. So as an example, we right here have, if I play it without the effects, sounds like this. This is what it sounds without distortion. There's obviously already distortion on the preset, but I'm gonna add some more. So with the effects, sounds like this. So just as an example, on this sound, I use the treble booster right here, which is a distortion plugin, right, in Guitaric to just add some higher frequencies using distortion. This is what it sounds without, the treble booster. And this is with. You can obviously add more and more. What distortion basically does, it adds harmonics to a sound. So if we play it without, it looks like this. Like very little high frequencies, a little bit in the bottom. Now we add the distortion and turn it up. As you can see, it's gonna add like a lot of fuzziness on this like certain distortion plugin, but it's also gonna add like a lot of like high frequencies. You can use distortion to add like certain frequencies that maybe are missing. And in this case, I used it to add some high frequencies. So the next sound design technique is Granular Synthesis. You can use different plugins for it. You can use Dark Sky again for Granular Synthesis, but you can also use stuff like Quanta 2. Granular Synthesis basically allows you to take small parts of a sample, turn them into like micro samples, and then repeat those in certain patterns. So if we do it right here, we can obviously change the envelope. Can change the length of the samples. Can change the grains. And being able to automate that is also very cool. And then you can just find cool patterns like this. You can also obviously change the position right here of the playback. So this is where like it grabs the single slices, and you can also randomize where it picks it. Now you can see it picks like a slice in that range. We can turn the grain direction reverse. Ooh. Wait, that sounds insane. So you can find very cool patterns. I've been using like whole sample in here now. You can also do this with vocals. With vocals, it's like pretty popular to do this. You can find it in like all these like lucid beats, sounds, where it's like the quarter chop vocal, stuff like that, you know? This is so sick, bro. I could instantly make a beat out of this right now. It's definitely very unique, and it's also a very nice way to get rid of beat block, because you can just drag in a sample, play around until you find a pattern, and turn this into a whole sample or beat. So the next sound design technique is going to be stretching. Stretching is one of my favorite techniques. We have a piano right here that I pitch down. And now using stretch to the stretch mode right here. You can obviously go for different stretch modes, and using maybe the formant right here. To completely shift the sound. You can also stretch it longer. And then you can obviously combine that with different techniques like chopping. And then maybe change up something at the end right here. Combining techniques, as you can see, is what really makes like the huge difference. You know, one technique is the cool, but if you're combining multiple, that's when you get like the crazy results. You can take this even further and use the next technique, which is reversing. So I made all these unique, so I can actually reverse them. We got some clicks right now, so we're gonna turn to generic. And then we can maybe pitch it up again. And add like a Cymatics Deja Vu. Yeah, I like this actually. But yeah, as you can see, the more like techniques you combine, you get like a more unique outcome basically. And it's gonna take some time figuring out which works together and how you can like apply them. But that's what this video is for, to show you guys all the techniques that I think are very cool and that I use on a daily basis, so that you can add these techniques to your tool belt and yeah, maybe make something cool out of it. So the next thing we're gonna do is using automations. Just a simple automation as an example could be volume automation. We could just automate this right here, have the channel volume, and we can turn this into something like this. I can just change this up a little bit to give it a little bit more bounce. You know, we could something like this. You can really like go in and build a bounce just using volume automations. And this is just volume, you know. We can do the same with everything from Dark Sky. You can actually automate all of these. So you can go in, press multi-link to controller, press the number button, move it a little bit, come right here, create an automation clip. Right here, as you can see, we have Dark Sky number automation. So we can go in and do the same thing. Can maybe go down. And now I just want to try out different stuff. So what I would do right here, create sequence. And now we can just randomize it a little bit. So now we get a lot of like different automation variations, and now we can just play with it a little bit and find something that sounds cool, accept it. And now we can go through and find out which are like good automations, you know. I'm gonna turn it into 100%. And then we can, let's say, use this right here as automation. And maybe when I turn it down a little bit. Now we completely lock in the effect by actually like customizing the thing. Now we can automate the next thing right here. And maybe turn the size up like this, you know, every bar basically. And then we can go further and even like automate the speed. But you can do a lot of automation, and there are like a lot of cool ways to create automations from scratch. Using the sequence is always cool. So the next thing I'm going to show you guys is resampling. So if I have like a pattern right here, it's playing for a long time. I have the record button like it's armed, and I'm recording. This is gonna just record the signal that's coming in, you know? But if I go in and I change the volume or I change anything, it's going to change the recording, you know? As you can see, it's when I turned on the volume, it became quieter. This also is affected by different plugins. So if you add like, let's say reverb, and every time the bar hits, you turn the reverb all the way up. It's going to be in this recording. That's why it's called resampling, right? And this is like a technique that I use a ton, but in combination with other things. So next mixing technique is parallel compression. I just call it that. It's not compression. It has nothing to do with compression. It's just the concept of parallel compression. The idea is in parallel compression that, let's say this right here is your main source of sound, like a drum bass. Then you send that drum bass to two different mix tracks. One is going to be the dry one is going to be the wet one. And these two are going to be sent only to another one right here. Boom. And this is going to be your drum, like your master. So sound comes in, goes to these two, and these two meet right here. On the dry one, you put basically no effects on there. On the wet one, you put like a lot of compression, distortion stuff to really get like gritty drums. And then you mix it under the dry signal to get some texture, you know. That's pretty much what like parallel compression is, right? So I use this concept for samples and melodies, and it looks like this. I have this normal one shot that goes into 3 tracks right here, which is one with nothing in there, one with complete effects chain, and another one with complete effects chain. And they all meet right here on the one shot master. This allows me to really give it some like watery textures or like artifacts and just level that under the main sound. So this is what the first effects chain sounds like. This is what the second sounds like. This is what the original sounds like. This is like a little bit too dry for me, so I want to add something under there, and now I can just level it under there. I can go even crazier. Without. And with. What you could also do now is bounce all these 3 out. And now that we have the 3 audio files, these 2 being the effects chain one and these being the normal one, now we can combine techniques, you know? So now we have 3 audio files and it's super easy to stretch something. Or maybe reverse something, layer something under there. So that would be the next sound design technique, which would be layering. Now we can layer stuff under there. Or we can maybe stretch it and layer it. Now we can add the other one as well. And then we could go in and maybe use something like an automation job again, or like automation, like channel volume automation. We turn this up like this to bring a little bit of bounce in it. The other ones together. So without all these techniques, it sounds like this. And with, it sounds like this. So you can use a lot of these techniques in combination and pair them differently and try out different stuff to get like cool effect. I basically use this to texturize sound. The next sound design technique is recreating pedals. If you've also heard like these kind of grainy sounds and people having like these crazy accents and like riffs and stuff, it's all sounding like little blips of sound. They either do it with hardware using pedals and just recording it and then playing with the pedal, picking out the best parts, but you can actually emulate that using plugin. All we have to do is do the resampling technique. So we just have like a long pattern like this. We're gonna turn this on arm and we're gonna add a couple of different effects to our sound. This is what it sounds normally. And then we just add all kinds of different plugins. In this case, I'm going to add a pitch wheel, a portal, and also going to use the Cymatics Dark Sky. And we're going to all detach them so that we have like, that we can actually touch the controls, you know? And we're going to even add like something else. It doesn't really matter. You just want plugins that really like fuck with your sound, you know? You could also use Deja Vu, which is also very nice. So now that we have our plugins up, what we want to do is arm our track. Not armed, it's armed now. And then we just record. So now, while it's recording, we can play with like the effects and it's gonna record that what we're doing. Our goal right now is to create little blips of sound that we can actually after use to build something, you know? And as soon as we did that, we can close all the plugins. F12 closes all the plugins. And now, as you can see, we have a super long audio clip. And now we can delete all this. And we can go through and pick the best parts. And we can actually pick parts. Let's use the whole thing. So this one already sounds fire. So we're gonna just take this one for sure. And now obviously the same rule applies. You can actually combine techniques, you know, so we can just take this, make it unique as sample, and then we can start maybe stretching this, you know. And then we can go in and add effects to this little simple blip of sound, maybe using illusion. We can stretch it out maybe long. Maybe you can take a little part of this right here, clone it, make it unique, and combine that with reversing a sound. Okay, obviously turn these generic so it doesn't click. I'm gonna add illusion to this one as well. Can pitch it up. So this is how you can emulate pedal sound. Just duplicate your pattern, arm it, start recording, and start while the sound is playing with various like different effects and just trying to get this little grainy sound, this little pedal sounds. And after that, you can puzzle together your pattern. So these are the 17 best sound design techniques that I know and that I use daily. If you guys want that new Cymatics Dark Sky plugin that I've been using all video, you can check the first link in the description for more information. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you can make some cool stuff using these sound design techniques. Peace out.